Wow, what a party. I almost am sorry to dampen the spirit, but I'm not here to dampen the spirit. So what you just saw on the screen, in case you didn't catch it, was Beit Ellie, which is in Kfar Chabad. We maybe perhaps afterwards. Beit Ellie is one of the projects that our family have been involved in the last couple of years. And the home is open to all soldiers, not specifically lone soldiers, to all soldiers who need a place for Chagim, for Shabbat. And it's been one of our very, very successful projects. So just to go back a little bit, because I wasn't going to start there. So basically what happened was that in December 2020, in the heart of COVID, my husband and myself, together with my daughter, picked up and left our beautiful home and luxuries of Johannesburg, South Africa, and followed our 3 sons who had previously made Aliyah and served in the army to Israel. That was the beginning, stuck in a hotel room with a threat of a fine of 5,000 shekel if we opened the door. Maybe some of you are familiar with that Israeli bureaucracy. What can I say? It was an interesting first few months in Israel, not necessarily an easy time to make Aliyah. Unfortunately, we didn't know that that potentially was the easy part. 11 months later, we celebrated a beautiful wedding of our oldest son. We finished Sheva Brachot on a Sunday, and the following Sunday morning, our son Ellie was walking to work at the Kotel and was killed by a Hamas terrorist. Ellie was killed with a bag on his back, which had inside of it Likutei Sichos and his tefillin, both of which we have and did not have to be buried with him, thank God. What can I say? What I can say is that when I stood in the room after we'd been told the news that Ellie had been killed, I put my arms around my family, and my immediate words on hearing the news is that we will be okay. We will be okay. We will get through this. That was my very first mantra, and it is to this mantra that I stand here today. When we came to Ellie's funeral the next day, there were 17,000 people at his funeral. I don't know 17,000 people. I don't know if you do. But what I realized very quickly were 2 things. Number one, we were part of a much bigger picture. We were part of an Am Yisrael that cared for us from the bottom of their hearts, and they were there to support us. But what I also learned very, very quickly was that my son had left his mark in this world, and that I had a big job ahead of me to follow in his footsteps. I had a choice at that point. Was I going to let this tragedy define me? Was I going to pull that duvet over my head and say, this is my tragedy, this is my life? Or was I going to take that tragedy and create a new life, a new beginning, something unexpected, something that I didn't know at that point that I could do? The details followed of Ellie's attack, an attacker. And we have video footage showing us that the terrorist, who was a teacher in Jerusalem, in the Old City, stood outside HYD, stood outside a Jewish day school called Moriah, just borders the Arab quarter and the Jewish quarter. And he stood outside there for 45 minutes watching these children play with the weapon under his coat. And for 45 minutes he debated what he was going to do. And I thank Hashem that he decided to leave those pure and little neshamas and walk up the road and choose, handpick from Hashem, my son Ellie, in place of those children. And I realized from very early on that as hard as the pain was and is, Ellie was handpicked for this mission. I stand here today. I do not know why, and I may never know why, but I do know that I need to do something with this tragedy that is going to make a difference in this world. I could have turned to hatred at that point. I could have let hatred consume me. I could have gone for all the bureaucratic things that we were being pulled in to do. Fight the terrorist family's rights. Fight the widow's pension. And I said no. No. Hatred and anger holds no place in my heart. It's not going to get me anywhere in this world. I need to take all that energy and I need to put it into something positive. And very soon on, within the first 24 hours, we had already launched the Ellie Kaye Unity Torah, whose mission was to get people from all around the world to buy a letter in this Torah, which is about to be donated to Bnei Akiva to go on with tour groups throughout the land of Israel, accompanying all our youth, our future, as well as going to Poland 4 times during the year. That is a project we're about to launch. Ellie had been a soldier in the Sanchanim unit. Beit Ellie is in Kfar Chabad, and Ellie spent many of his Shabbosim in Kfar Chabad. Everything we do is about adding and growing and bringing love and light to Am Yisrael and to Eretz Yisrael and to Jews around the world. We've just laid ground for a vineyard that we're about to plant. Ellie loved agriculture. Those are things that are going to make a difference. Standing here today, speaking to you, seeing the beautiful youth, the seminary girls who are here. You are our future. You have so much potential. You need to use it. You need to channel it. You need to make every moment count. Ellie was 25 years old. He achieved more in his lifetime than some people do in their entire life of 100 plus. Make every moment count. That's what I have learned from Ellie. Make every activity, make every connection, accept people for who they are. Take people's differences and say, it's okay, they're not like me, but I still can connect to them. I can still make a difference. When Ellie's friends sat in our home, and it was a whole varied group of people, and we pulled out the Lekutei Sichos that he had in his bag, his friends who were sitting there, some with a kippah, some without a kippah, they said, oh yes, we know that book. He used to sit and learn it with us. I'm like, really? That's interesting. He never told his mother that. Mothers in here, never underestimate your children because they always do things to surprise us. The other thing I'd like to share is as much as we do things in Ellie's name and as Ellie's legacy, we also realized a very important thing. The rest of our life can't just be about memorializing our son. It's equally important to do something that is important to us as people, to us as individuals. And thus began this balance of doing things in Ellie's name, speaking to groups, traveling, going to places, being a voice and an ambassador for Israel, which is so crucially important today, but also looking at our own lives and saying, what am I doing with my life? Where am I going? And I'm proud to say, I stand here today as a full-time student because what was important to me was to continue my studies in my own space and my own life. And it's a very important lesson. Again, with tragedy not being something that always has to define us. Make a difference with that, but also look at your own life and say, what's important to me? What's of value? And go for it. Never, ever don't reach for something that you think is unattainable. And then came the next test, the 7th of October. On the 7th of October, every single one of my children was called up. My daughter was in a combat unit in Yusuf Kravi. Currently at the time, there was a knock on the door. I opened the door. There was a soldier there, a chayelet. My daughter was off for that chag. And she said, Nama, get your bag. We're going to war. I said, what? And that was it. Within 2 hours, my baby girl was out the door to fight in this war. My other boys were called up. My daughter-in-law was called up. My kids have been in Gaza. They've been on the border. They've been with the humanitarian line. They have been all over. It was tough. It was tough. It is tough. But I stand here and I say, I am not in charge. I always comment on the fact that Ellie lived in Kibbutz Nirim. For 2 years, he lived on the Gaza border. For 2 years, he was a chayal in the Tzanchanim unit where his soldiers at times turned to him and said, are we going to live or are we going to die? He left the south. He went to Erev HaKodesh. He took a job at the Kotel HaMaravi that we all yearn to be at. He was walking to work. And the Eibishter said, it's time. This one is for me. That is our destiny. And when my children walked out on that day, I said, Eibishter, protect them, care for them. I'm so scared, but I am so proud of them. There wasn't a question in their mind that they were going. They didn't doubt for a second. How could we not go? And when my son came home the one day for a couple of hours to meet with us and his new wife, this was my second son, thank God, and he said, I have to tell you, I'm going in tonight. And my heart almost stopped. I had to dig deep and I had to say, Hashem is in charge. I'm not meant to be here to stand and be heavy tonight. I'm here to say to each and every one of you a few crucial takeaway messages. Number one, every single one of us have choices in their lives. Whether it's about Israel, whether it's in your own personal life, whether it's not even connected, please God, it's not connected to tragedy. Everyone has choices. Look at those choices and know that you have the power to make the choice that is best for you. Second point I'd like to leave you with is there comes a point where we have to accept. There comes a point where we have to say that Eibishter is in charge. And we have to say, whatever will be, will be. We hope and pray that all will be well, but we can't live our life in fear. And we can't live our life in bitterness. And we can't live our life in anger, because those are not characteristics that will help us. We never understand Hashem's plan. I wish I could stand here today to say to all of you who have been through any suffering and any loss, we don't know Hashem's plan. I have to say that Ellie has left us with a mission. It's not always easy to navigate these turbulent times through loss and trauma, but we have no choice to put one foot in front of the other. And as I stand here today, Erev Shavuot, I want to say that Shavuot is Ellie's birthday. He was born on first day Shavuot, 2 weeks early, and therefore he is called Eliyahu David, in honor of David HaMelech, because David HaMelech is a legacy, Mashiach. That is the connection. I leave you here tonight to say we look forward, please God, to showing strength and continued strength as a nation. Unity, if we learned one thing from Ellie, it was unity. It was acceptance. Let's move out of that comfort zone and let's move into accepting and loving and being tolerant for those around us. Thank you for listening. And please God, the ultimate simcha of Mashiach Tzidkenu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvos v'tzivanu lahafresh chala min ha'isa.